Hi, kids. This is the second episode of my answering questions from the active mentees. Since the last talk we had, which is about more or less a week ago, although we've had some plateaus in the Corona experience. My guesstimate of things happening has not got any better. In fact, in some cases, it's gotten a little worse. I get emails from you kids asking questions that were asked and answered multiple times from the material on the site, from the material that you got in your gigs, and more importantly, should have been answered if they were asked of your board members. It's obvious to me you're not asking your board members. You're not using them. And this is the time that you should be using them because they've been through some tough times before. Whereas you may have not been through some tough times. But whether we do it a third time will depend on how the environment goes. But I'm going to say without saying, I didn't enjoy predicting the tsunami, and the financial tsunami is going to be worse than you thought, and it's going to last longer. And all I can tell you is that plan for the worst and then hope for the best. The numbers that I'm looking at, and I just told a young kid that I happen to be chairman of that next to pass on the deal, whereas his lawyer told him that it was a good deal and we should just defer 60 days, et cetera, and where supposedly the broker said that he had 140 or 145 something other offers, and I told him, well, then fucking let him take it. If people, sellers, especially through brokers, think they're going to get anywhere near the asked for value of their assets today, as opposed to 8 weeks ago, then something's not right with them in their head, and something's not right with you in your head. I would rather you save your powder. Now, if you can make a deal that is subject to what I call a reverse clawback, okay, so you did $1 million and now your revenues are down 50%. Let's do a new purchase price based on the reduced 50% less cash flow. And if it does go back to anywhere near, then you have ratchets where you can, you meaning the seller, can get more higher price. Okay? I'll pontificate a little bit at the end, but that's it for now. Let's start with the questions. What did you do that can be replicated now at Great Western and blah, blah, when oil? Oh God. $8 a barrel to become the fastest growing energy company. Your success was taking into better. What I did was, and I've said it before, and I've told you, when you and I sat in Florida, when you came down to visit me in Florida, that fateful day, and I sat there in the lobby, the foyer of that rich hotel in Miami Beach, I said that I made more calls. The only difference between the QLA then and QLA, or QLA before and QLA now, because QLA now is you got to make more calls. Remember I used to say, I told you that I made between 6 and 8 presentations a day. It's just a matter of volume. It's a matter of output. That's the only difference. Right now, are you looking for business opportunities, especially in virus, healthcare, or in this chaotic business field? No, I'm not. I'm not looking for anything. I am chairman of 20, 25 companies, and I'm giving sage advice when asked. In addition to banks, credit unions, insurance companies, government, who would you be spending all your time contacting for capital? Same list or is something new? Okay, well, no, credit unions, banks, insurance companies, credit unions, the government. They're all, but right now there are special funds being set up by the government that you should be chasing after. But it's important to remember, at least in the United States, the government money bailout, or whatever you want to call it, is pointed at existing businesses to keep them from going out of business, not new businesses. So, but they're lending, they're just lending slower. And you're better off going to a bank that you've had a banking relationship with. How can we continue to contact financial institutions, lawyers, accountants with closure, social distancing? Electronically, through the Zoom, through Skype, and through the other different other tools that I'm not as familiar with. What the U.S. classification of industry sectors as essential and non-essential? You got me by the balls. I have no idea. But for example, on this estate, we've got nobody that's essentially essential, although we have 1 or 2 gardeners coming in a couple of days a week to keep the lawns cut. We had a plumber come in to fix something early on. I believe they're considered essential. But pretty much everything else is non-essential. Do you see any issues in terms of raising money from banks based on the huge losses they will be taking in the short term and the tightening of lending requirements? No, but they're going to follow the requirements set down by the government. But at the end of the day, it's mostly all still guaranteed by the government, and if you're persistent, you'll get the money. Are there new paradigms for building fortunes in the chaotic times? No, the old paradigm still works, meaning the old QLA paradigm. Is there any specific industries that were once selling for high multiples but are now willing to take 3 to 5? They're all willing to take less now. They're all willing to take less. Remember, everything is worth between 25 and 50% less than it was at the beginning of this year, and some companies aren't worth anything. And you got to realize that's a really hard pill to swallow for the sellers. They worked 20, 25 years, unlike QLA. They just kept putting the money back in their business, and now they've got no retirement. And remember, wealth is built off of a series of transactions, not one. Yet in their mind, they're still trying to get rich off one transaction. Cycles repeat themselves, and you said if you live long enough, you will see everything again. What do you see happening for the next 2 years? Well, that's about how long it's going to take us. I think that social distancing, and it's going to be better once there's an antidote, once there's a pill you can take. See, once there's a pill you can take, and you know that, when you shake hands and hug and kiss, which I was never for hugging and kissing, if you remember. Now you know why. I say facetiously. But it's going to take at least 1.5 years to 2 years to get back to some semblance of normalcy. They're talking about opening up certain businesses here in Europe. In fact, Austria and a couple others have already done that. Okay? But they're letting half as many people in the markets. Now, the people that are going in the markets right now are buying twice as much, so maybe it doesn't matter that they're only letting half as many people in. But the point is, it's not going to be the same. Are you going to stand in line to go to a baseball game until there's an antidote, until there's some kind of pill or shot you can take? It's just like the flu jabs and the various jabs that my wife here in the UK makes me take yearly, normally for old people, but they're going to have a COVID-19 jab. Okay? And if you don't take it and you get COVID-19, it's tough shit. Health services will be negatively impacted as physicians, nurses, caregivers contract COVID-19. Nursing homes are getting shut down, repurposed as makeshift hospitals and mortuaries, by the way. How will this impact areas you previously recommended, like the bedpans? There's no place for the elderly to go. What I can see is that the bedpans are still going to be around, and home health is still going to be around. What areas of the healthcare do you predict will remain hot? The ones I just said. How to take direct action in the current situation, step by step. No, I'm not going to give you step by step. The 7 steps still count, and you Swiss dummy. Nothing's changed other than you got to double your output. Now, I got some emails, and I'm ashamed to say I'm chairman of a couple of these guys, and they were complaining about before COVID-19, they had made 50 phone calls, and they got roughly 10% response, cold calls to businesses. Now they're making 50 phone calls, and they're only getting 2 or 3 responses. Yet they're telling them to come back, in 6 months or a year. Well, if you're only making 50 phone calls, and you know who I'm talking to, well then what the fuck? That's why I made when the market was collapsing back in the day, when oil went from $41 a barrel down to 6 or 8, I was making 6 or 8 presentations a day. How long until this Corona thing is over, and what is the new normal going to look like, and what opportunities are going to open up that didn't exist before? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But there will be some opportunities, but not necessarily for roll-ups. The same roll-ups. Healthcare is not going away. The bottom third of healthcare is not going away. What's the best place in North America, U.S., Canada, to establish headquarters for cybersecurity consolidation? In New York City, the best place? No, I wouldn't say it's New York City. I just noticed who wrote this to me. I'd probably say Washington, D.C. Logistics seem to be one of the highest performing real estate sectors, both before and post COVID-19. And most investors seek to invest in assets such as warehouses, distribution parks. I'm not sure what a distribution park is. Due to this, I believe my biggest challenge would be to find motivated owners who would accept seller financing. Unless you ask, you dipshit, you don't know. How can I overcome this? With some balls, what would be the best way to incentivize these sellers, considering so much capital is aimed toward logistics, real estate investment? Through either the 60-40 model or a ratchet, whereas if they're as successful as you think they are, Mr. Seller, then you should benefit. But if they're not, then I shouldn't be willing, and I'm not willing to pay more than the true value of it is now. The new benchmark, the new leveling, the new bar is COVID-19 bar. Okay, what are they worth during COVID-19? The Corona crisis started in China, where I presently live and work, spread to Europe, U.S., and now remaining in Asia. What is Mr. Peña's prediction on how long it will take for each continent and global economy to overcome the crisis? What are the movements in the political economy? I don't know, but I'm guessing 1.5 to 2 years minimum. And I base that on they're going to have the first testing on humans next year for the virus, the thing that'll fix the virus. So human testing is not going to be overnight. So I say 1.5 to 2 years. Would you invest in MOB? Medical office building in California? No. Trust deeds with strong spreads. Depends what the trust deeds you're in. And you know better than that question, pendejo. Which companies, industries do you see not being impacted by what is going on? And which companies, industries do you see in the eye of the storm? Well, sweetheart, you actually know better than this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. They're all going to be affected. Everything's going to be affected. Some will be affected less. The restaurants without the home delivery aspect are dead. So I would assume all restaurants, as we've seen already in this short few weeks, them go to home delivery. The eye of the storm, mortuaries are hot. It's a shitty thing to say. Cemeteries are hot. Crematoriums are hot. They're burying people in massive open graves in New York. Not just New York, they're also putting them in cold storage here in Europe. Will funding be as readily available for non-business intervention loans to buy companies, or will there be government regulations causing banks to support the economy? They're going to be available, but the keeping companies alive are going to be more readily available, as witnessed in all the news coverage. We've been looking at importing PPE, already have agreements in place with local government, but delivering this is near impossible. Well, down under where you're from, it shouldn't be, but it's a matter of work. I've told you this before. You got to, double, triple your output. How will lenders value assets in these uncertain times? Cash flow. And that's cash flow that is real, not historical cash flow.